911, what's your emergency?
We are live here on the campus of Virginia Tech, the location of the deadliest shooting in U.S. history. 33 dead, 29 wounded.
Earlier today, a mass shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, killing at least 21 people, including 19 children.
There's an active shooter situation in South Florida.
Oh my God! 911, what's the location of the emergency?
Sandy Hook School. I think there's somebody shooting in here. Sandy Hook School.
Okay.
They're still surrounding. They're still shooting. Sandy Hook School, please.
4 people killed, a 5th injured. Then officers racing to a second farm nearby. More gunfire.
More than one area. Actually, have 3 victims.
Now to that breaking news in Southern California. The search for the gunman who opened fire during Lunar New Year celebrations is believed to now be over. The shooting happened in Monterey Park over.
We begin with those disturbing attacks on religious services. First, the breaking news from Texas, a gunman opening fire inside a church near Fort Worth.
We're following some breaking news out of California now. Authorities have just identified the man accused of shooting 1 person to death and injuring 5 others inside a church.
Greetings everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Today I will be sharing with you some information on how to react should you encounter an active shooter. My experience stems from over 20 years in the United States Marine Corps, serving all over the world. I'm also a retired police officer who served over 20 years in our local community. I'd like to begin now with the overview. In this presentation, we will discuss how this topic affects you, profile of an active shooter, what to do during an active shooting incident, what to do when law enforcement arrives, and what we can do to prepare now. So how will this topic affect you? Well, as seen in the introduction of this video, mass shooting incidents have skyrocketed across our nation and around the world. It's not just school shootings anymore. Shootings occur in nightclubs, workplaces. It happened at a large concert venue. Shootings even happens in churches. A place of worship is not even a safe haven anymore. But does that surprise you? Where is it safe to be nowadays? Between the pandemic, mass shootings, crime, and government corruption, should we all just stay at home? We all know this doesn't work. We've tried this before. This is not a living. It is mentally, physically, and spiritually unhealthy. We all need to go to work, school, shop, and must gather together in worship. And now that you know how this topic affects you, let's move on to the profile of an active shooter. An active shooter is one who is actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined, populated area. Active shooters will use firearms with no pattern or method to their selection of victims. An active shooter will kill without mercy. An active shooter will kill as many people as possible, regardless of age, gender, or ethnicity. If you are a live human being, an active shooter is determined to kill anyone and everyone in order to add to his or her body count. So what does an active shooter look like? Well, the next time you go to work, school, the marketplace, or to church, take a look around and see if you can spot the face of evil. Unlike the movies, the face of evil is not so prevalent. The face of an active shooter could look like any one of us. Here, you see the faces of real mass shooters of the past. These faces are no different from what you see at the farmer's market or the shopping centers or anywhere in public. The only difference is that these individuals had demons in their heads that caused them to do what they did. And now that we've covered the profile of an active shooter, let's move on. What to do during an active shooter incident. Active shooter incidents will be dangerous, volatile, and extremely chaotic. So making a decision on what to do under pressure may cause you to break down and force you not to make a decision at all. So how do we decide with so many things going on at the same time? I would like to share the concept of the OODA loop. The OODA loop was a decision-making tool created by Colonel John Boyd of the United States Air Force. The OODA loop will help you focus on available information, putting it into context, and quickly making calculated decisions. It was initially used to train pilots to make time-sensitive decisions rapidly when there was no time to gather all the information. Today, the OODA loop has become an important concept in litigation, business, law enforcement, management, and military strategy. The OODA loop consists of 4 parts: observe, orient, decide, and act. As you can see, this is a cycle that can continue for as long as the situation rapidly evolves. The cycle begins with an observation, which leads a person to orient on possible options, then decide on an appropriate course of action, and finally act on that decision. At that point, the results are observed and the cycle begins again. So let's go back to our topic: what to do during an active shooter incident. Now that you're armed with the OODA loop cycle, there are only 3 possible reactions to the threat of an active shooter: run, hide, or fight. If you have the means to run, do so immediately. Leave your belongings behind. As you evacuate the area, warn others as you go. Help others only if it's safe to do so. And once you exit the building, keep on running. Don't stop at exit points because you may hinder others behind you from escaping the shooter. Call 911 only when you get to safety. You must get as much distance between you and the shooter as you physically can. Don't go to your car and don't stay in the parking lot. This is essential because car bombs and secondary explosive devices create a more devastating impact on existing chaos, creating more death to the shooter's body count. If law enforcement is outside, get behind them and await further instruction from officers. Hide. If you have no opportunity for escape, make every effort to get to a room and lock yourself in. If there's no lock, improvise by barricading the doors. Shut off the lights and ensure everyone silence their cell phones. Once you're in a reasonably safe position, use the OODA loop cycle again to formulate a plan to fight if the shooter makes entry into the room. Scan the room for items you can use as a weapon. Coordinate with people who may be willing to fight and reassure the people who are too afraid as to keep them as quiet as possible. Fight. This is where the OODA loop cycle is essential. There are a lot of training videos, booklets, and resources on how to survive an active shooter, and a lot of information recommends you fight only as a last resort. However, there may be situations that your proximity to the shooter is so close that fighting is the only response possible for survival. Once you decide to fight, you must fully commit. Be as aggressive as possible. Once you commit to fight, others may jump in to help you. Throw items at the suspect or use improvised weapons to make every effort to disarm and disable the shooter. Confronting an active shooter takes courage, commitment, and is without a doubt extremely high risk with uncertain results. However, Confronting the shooter will, at least, delay and obstruct the shooter's warpath. And with the grace of God, if the shooter is taken down, it will have saved lives of many others. Now that we've covered what to do during an active shooter incident, let's explore what to do when law enforcement arrives. If you find yourself running away from the shooter and you encounter law enforcement officers coming in, ensure you keep your hands visible, preferably with your hands up. If you manage to grab a weapon of some sort, drop it immediately and keep your hands up. If the officers arrive while the shooter is still actively shooting, the officers will be at a high state of alert, and their objective is to stop the active shooter. If you see a team of officers with guns in their hands, they will not stop to help people who are injured. In fact, they may push people out of the way or be yelling commands. Do not ask them for direction. Do not get offended if they yell at you. And don't take it personally if they push you out of the way. Just proceed towards safety in the direction the officers entered the building. If you're locked in place when officers arrive, stay there until you are absolutely certain that the all clear order has been given by law enforcement. Once first responders arrive, rescue teams will come in to treat the injured. They will also set up a staging area where people can come for medical treatment and for officers to identify witnesses. Do not leave the area until law enforcement instructs you to do so. And now that we covered what to do when law enforcement arrives, we move on to the last portion of this presentation: what we can do to prepare now. I only have 3 words for this section: Emergency Action Plan, or EAP. Emergency action plans include the following. And I'm not going to go through this entire list because the list goes on and on and on. But in a nutshell, it does give individual roles and responsibilities, emergency evacuation procedures, safety equipment. It covers lockdown procedures. But if you want more information, I've included some of the links below to help you with developing an emergency action plan. I've also included the links for the full training videos depicted during this presentation. In my estimation, the most significant part of an emergency action plan are drills and mitigation. This is normally our weak link. I think the best examples can be taken from our elementary schools. When I was growing up, we constantly had fire drills and earthquake drills. When I was in elementary school, everyone did what they were supposed to do. As I got into middle school and high school, I noticed that students were not taking drills as seriously as they did when I was younger. And in college, I don't remember doing any drills at all. And finally, here is a summary of what we just covered. Active shooting incidents can happen anywhere and anytime where 3 or more people gather, such as schools, workplaces, shopping centers, churches, public venues, private venues, and so on. An active shooter will kill everyone possible without mercy. Use the OODA loop cycle in your decision-making process, especially when you're under stress. Run, hide, fight. Each are independent options and not progressive steps. If you run, keep going beyond the parking lot and toward the next city block, because if you're out of sight, you are out of mind for the active shooter. If you hide, scan the room for improvised weapons and coordinate with people for a plan of attack in case the active shooter makes his way into your room. If you fight, you must fully commit to the act, even if it means taking his life. Fighting fair is not an option when you're defending yourself or others. Law enforcement officers are there to stop the active shooter. Just do as they command and get out of the way. coordinate with your administration for an emergency action plan. And this plan should incorporate drills whenever possible. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, but more importantly, I hope that you took some information of value. Until next time, take care, be safe, and Godspeed.